I have been absolutely whacking the bass lately on this Wakebait. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to build this Wakebait. The good thing about it is, if you happen to watch my last video, you might remember that I have an example fishing lure built into FreeCAD now. And we are going to use that to greatly speed up the build of this bait. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the Curved Shapes Workbench, and we're going to run the example fishing lure. Now, if you don't have that example on your menu, you will need to update the Curved Shapes Workbench. You can do that by going to the Tools, Add-on Manager. And once it loads, you can look for an update button here. And if it's not there, you can also search for Curved Shapes. Okay, and then you can uninstall and reinstall it. So the Wakebait that we're going to build is actually this right here in the file. So let's take this file now and save it somewhere on our computer. And then we're going to go ahead and start to whack the things out of this file that we don't need. So the first thing we're going to do is just delete these 4 curved arrays. I just shift selected all of them, hit the delete key. We're also going to delete this eye that was just cosmetic because it's not in the right place in the model anyway. And then we're going to go into the sketches and we're going to delete sketches we don't need. So if you expand this curved array here, the only one that's left, you'll see that we're using the flat-sided front profile, the crankbait side profile, and the crankbait top profile. So those are the ones we want to keep up here in the sketches group. We can just delete the others until we're left with these 3 sketches. And the other thing we're going to do is, because there were originally 5 lures in this example, I built them all on the origin. I built them all in one place, but then I transformed those objects. I, right-clicked them and I moved them around so that I could lay them all out. And when you do that, it transforms only the object that you're dealing with, but not its dependencies, the sketches. So the sketches are all where we need them to be, but this object is not. To fix that, we're just going to select it, come down here in the Properties, go to the Data tab, and we're going to find the placement, which is near the top. We'll expand the position here, and we're just going to zero out everything. And if we do that and show any of these profile sketches, you'll see that our bait now is sitting right where those profiles are. So this isn't much of a Wakebait yet. It needs a bill. It needs eyes, it needs pilot holes, and that's what we're going to build in this tutorial. So I will go ahead and hide the bait, and I want to go ahead and show the side profile just so we can see what's going on. And I'm going to set up a couple of placement sketches for the bill so that we can position it right where we want it on the lure. So if I select this sketches folder and go back to either the part or sketcher workbench, I'll use part, and create a new sketch on the YZ plane, we can see, the outside shape of our lure, and we're just going to drop a simple line, not construction geometry. It looks like I'm in construction mode here with blue icons. We're going to draw a line on the origin, and we are going to make this line 19.5 millimeters tall. So I'll just hit the enter key, and then it looks like it's close to -90, so -90. The other thing I need to do is distance this from that horizontal axis, or sorry, this vertical axis. So I'll use the D key on my keyboard to select that point in the axis and set a distance of 3 millimeters. And already this line is fully constrained. So let's close this sketch. And I'm going to name this Bill Anchor, for lack of a better name. Now, we need another copy of this sketch so that we can do a 3 points plane placement. So let's just select it in the tree view there, hit Control C, hit Control V, and I'm going to rename this sketch to Bill Placement. And I'm going to go ahead and drag it up into this sketches folder because I found that having these all together is really helpful. That's a little tip I learned from another YouTuber. So now if we rotate our model here, the bill anchor and the bill placement are in exactly the same spot, right? Because I just made a copy. So if I take the bill placement sketch and go down to Properties Data, I want to actually move that either direction off to the side. And if you look down here, you can see that's the X direction. So I'm going to go ahead and just come in here and move it 10 millimeters off to the side. Doesn't really matter how far it is, just so that they're not on the same exact spot. Then I'll go ahead and control select both of these. Down in Properties, View, I will set the point size to 10, and that's just going to make it a lot easier for us to select those points. Let's create the actual bill shape, the bill sketch now. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in a little bit here, and we're going to control select 3 points. So let's just go ahead and start with this one. Select, and then control select the one on the bottom of that line, and then control select the top over here. Doesn't really matter which 3 points you choose, but you need 3 points to create a plane. We'll create a new sketch. We'll let it use this default plane by 3 points. And here's our sketch. And you can see from the side profile, or if I was to show the bait, that this is the line we want to base our bill around. So let's go ahead and bring it in as construction geometry. If you're on this newer version of FreeCAD 1.1.0, you need to make sure that you are in construction mode up here by hitting the toggle and getting the blue icons. You do that before you bring in the geometry. Click that button, click on this line, and then we're going to get construction instead of regular geometry. Let's go ahead and hide in the tree view here the side profile and these 2 bill sketches so that we have a little cleaner look at what we're doing. Let's toggle back into regular geometry so our icons go white. And we're going to drop a couple of horizontal lines. And then we'll use the symmetry tool, which you can find up here on the toolbar, or you can see its keyboard shortcut there is an S. I'll just use the S. I'll hit the S, and then I will take that point and make it symmetrical to that point there. And do the same for the bottom. And then I'm going to dimension using the D key, this top line, and I am going to make that 16 millimeters across. Then I'll grab another line and I will just sort of connect the dots here so we have a bit of a trapezoid shape. Make sure that you are getting that little symbol, that little cross symbol, so that the dots are actually connecting. The constraints are forming, and you can check now by doing this. We'll worry about the size and shape in a minute. So the next tool we're going to use is the fillet tool. And it's up here on the toolbar. It has this little corner icon. So I'm just going to click on it and zoom in, and we're going to select that line and that's going to put a fillet on it. We're going to go all the way around the bill and make everything round. Then we'll use the dimension key, again, the D key, the dimension tool. We'll click on this, and that's going to set the radius. And for the radius here, I want to use 3 millimeters. We'll switch to the equal constraint, which is the E key on the keyboard. And then I'm going to take that and make them equal. And same, go back to my original one that's constrained and do the same thing all the way around. Okay, the only thing we have left to do is just set the angle between these 2 lines. So we will go up here on the toolbar and choose this angle dimension. And then we'll click the bottom line and this side line and set it to 85 degrees. Everything went green, and if you look at the tasks here, you show that we're fully constrained. So we can close this sketch now. I'll drag it up into the sketches folder. I will rename it to Bill Sketch. Let's go ahead and pad this or extrude it. And here we're going to set a length of 2 millimeters. And we want that to be symmetric to that sketch. So we'll say apply. We can close that. And we can rename this to Bill. Now if we bring back our bait and fuse those two objects together so they stay together, select them both, hit the fusion up here or the union button. It says union on the toolbar, but it actually creates something called a fusion. We'll rename that Blur and Bill. Now, if you didn't want any eyes, and if you wanted to use different hardware than I use, you could print this thing out and fish it now. For the remainder of this video, what I'm going to show is adding the eyes so that you have a place to attach your stick-on eyes, adding the screw holes, okay, and then adding a rattle chamber inside of it, because I find that the rattle chamber makes this bait very effective. Let's start with the eye. So here in the part workbench still, we're going to find this icon that says create primitive, or just primitive. And here we're going to choose a circle from the drop-down list. I'm going to set its radius to 3.25 millimeters. Now the reason for that is that's going to make a 6.5 diameter hole when we're done. And the eyes I'll use are 6 millimeter. That gives me just a little bit of clearance to easily set those in and glue them on. The other thing we're going to do though, we could transform this, but I'm going to go ahead and just set the values here so that it goes in the right orientation from the very beginning. So we're going to set this rotation axis Y to 1, and we're going to zero out the Z, and we're also going to set this angle to 90 degrees. We'll hit the create button and close this task panel. Now I'm going to rename this circle to eye placement. And even though it's not a sketch, it's an object that I use to affect my model. So I'm going to put it up here in the sketches. And then we're going to transform it. And this is going to be a little bit by eye. So we're going to right click on this thing and hit transform. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out of the bait so we can see it. And then I'm going to get a flat right view here so I can see where the eye goes and kind of position it by eye. Now, because there's a curve here, I want this eye to sit on the flat. That just makes the cut a lot cleaner. So I want it to be kind of close to that flat, but I want to be below it, and I want to be pretty close to the front of the bait there, so that's good. So over here in my translation, I'm at 0.1 millimeters so that I make very small movements, and my rotation angle is 1. So I'm going to grab this blue arrow and just take it all the way back to the bait until the circle starts to disappear. And zoom in a little bit. And you can see the top and back of that circle disappears before the front. We'll go ahead and rotate this to make it fit. So this red axis here, if I grab the red dot, you can see us transform this way. So let's kind of make it even. I'm trying to make this gap up here that's down in the lure even. And then if you look at the bait from the front, you can see that we're sticking way out on the side. And that is along this green axis here. So you grab the green dot. Okay, now we grab the blue arrow and just push it in and just tweak those different angles until we're kind of balanced and we just disappear inside the bait right there and say okay. Okay, let's select the eye placement circle in the model view now, and let's go ahead and extrude it. This time we'll use 1 millimeter and we'll go symmetric to its placement and say okay. I'm going to, now I have one eye on one side of the bait, so I'm going to go ahead and select that extrude, and I'm going to mirror it on the YZ plane. And that will put that mirror over here. Now I need to fuse these two objects together because even though the mirror follows the base object, they're not one object right now. So I select them both, union them together, and rename that to both eyes. And we'll go ahead and cut that out of the bait now to see what it looks like. So first select the lure and bill fusion, then both eyes, okay, with the control key, and perform a cut. And there is our eye socket. Now I'm going to show you something about measuring this eye socket, and it's not perfect. We're on a curved surface here, and I want about a 0.5 millimeter depth. That's why I went 1 millimeter symmetric. 0.5 millimeter back into the bait and 0.5 millimeter out the front to make sure I have a clean cut on the face. But if I zoom in here, you can see there's always going to be one line, and it's right there on this one. If you go ahead and zoom in and just click on that line, down here in the status bar, you'll see how long that line is, and it's 0.78 millimeters. So despite my best attempt to try to just barely sink this, it's a little deep, and that'll kind of hide part of my eye when I glue it on. Now that we know exactly where we're at, though, we can go back to our eye placement and we can change it. So there's a couple of ways to do it. I'm going to go into the transform, and I'm simply going to reorient so I can see. And because I'm at 0.1 millimeters, I'm just going to click it out twice. 1, 2. That should leave us at 0.58. And it does. Now, alternately, I could have also set that translation increment to 0.28 so I could get it exact, but I'm not that worried about 0.08 of a millimeter. So let's zoom out a little bit. We have our eye, we have our bill. It's time to create our pilot holes. For this, let's go ahead and just hide this cut or this bait so that we're working fresh. We're going to show the side profile, okay, and go to our right view. And I'm going to create a new sketch on the YZ plane to set up where we want to position our pilot holes. So again, if you're in the newer FreeCAD, make sure you're in construction mode. Bring in this side profile. And now we can go ahead and place our lines. Toggle out of construction geometry and place a line there. And I am going to make this back point. Actually, let's go ahead and dimension it first. I'll hit the D key and make it 10. And then I'll use the symmetry tool again with the S shortcut. And I'll grab that point and that point and that point. And that's going to make that line fully constrained. We'll go ahead and drop our other two lines. This one down here, we want to see that little point on line icon show up. And we're going to drag that up straight. And we're going to come over near the front. Again, point on line and drag that out straight. We'll use the E key to set some equal constraints. So since we have a distance there, we'll set that one and that one. And then we'll click again on the back and on the front. Now we just need to constrain where these lines sit on this profile. So for the middle one here, which is your front treble hook, I'm going to hit the D key and hit that point and the axis and set this to 22 millimeters, and it'll go fully constrained. We're going to go ahead and set a distance here too, but this time we're going to use this point and the horizontal axis, and we're going to set that to 4 millimeters. And now our sketch is fully constrained, so we can close it. I'm going to rename this rigging sketch. And we will go ahead and set up our pilot holes. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you probably know what's coming next. We're going to be in the part workbench and we're going to drop a cylinder. And we're going to take this cylinder and go to the data tab in properties. And we're going to set its radius to 0.7 millimeters. That'll end up with a 1.4 diameter hole, which is perfect for the screws I use. And a link to those screws is in the description below this video. We're going to set the height of the cylinder to 12 millimeters. And the reason for that is I want to cut all the way through the object And even though these lines are 10 millimeters long, I want to make sure that I don't end up with a face that doesn't cut completely. So now that I have one cylinder sized, I'm going to go ahead and select it, hit Control C, and hit Control V twice so that I get 3 of them. Now, if I select all of these cylinders in the model view and hit the space bar, they'll go invisible. And that makes mapping them a lot easier because otherwise they start to jump around and hide some points. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit and we'll just work from front to back. Highlight the top cylinder, go down here into the Data tab, find the Attachment Map Mode, click there, get the 3 dots, and then you're going to select that point and that line and say OZX. We'll go to the next cylinder, same thing. Click the 3 dots under Map Mode. We'll click the point, we'll click the line, and then we'll say OZX, and finally we'll do the back. Now, I'm going to highlight all of these objects in the tree view again and press the space bar to make them visible. And you'll see that every single one of them is going the wrong direction. We're going to fix that, leaving all of them together like this, and just come down here to Add Attachment and click on the Map Reversed, yes. And now they'll go the right direction. Since they're already highlighted, let's go ahead and come over here to the Union icon and create a fusion. And I will rename this to All Pilot Holes. Now, I'll expand the cut that we made before where we cut out the eyes, and I will select the eyes and the pilot holes and fuse them together. And I'm going to rename this All Body Cuts because we are not done cutting. Then I'll go to the cut, and first of all, let's rename it to Bait, because this is our final object that we're working with. And down here in the Properties in the Data tab, you can see the base is the fusion and the tool, both eyes. We're going to go to the tool here, click the 3 dots, and change it to All Body Cuts. And when we do that and hide these sketches, I'm just clicking on them here and then hitting the space bar. I bring the bait back, you're going to see that the pilot holes are there along with the eyes. And the only thing we have left to do is to create our rattle chamber. To make the weight chamber, we will create another curved array inside the body and cut it out. So let's go ahead and hide the bait for now. And we will select our sketches group again and create a new sketch on the YZ plane. In the model view, we will bring our rigging sketch visible because I want to place, and in fact, I'll show the side profile too. I want to place this weight chamber in relationship to this middle rig or this front treble hook. So let's go ahead and bring in the top point of that rigging. We can zoom in a little bit now, and we're going to create a rectangle. And I'll use the D key. I want this top distance to be 7 millimeters across. And I want the height here to be 6.5. Then we're going to take the horizontal constraint. I'm going to use the H key on my keyboard, and I'm going to click on that point and line them up. So I can go this direction, but it is setting on that line. Then we're going to use the D key again, and we're going to set a distance between that point and that point of 2.5 millimeters. And that distance is plenty enough for the walls around this hole so that the screw has something to hold on to before we have this opening in the middle of our bait. You can see that we're fully constrained, so let's go ahead and close the sketch and rename it to Weight Chamber Side. I'm going to go ahead and select the Sketches folder again in the hopes that my sketch will appear here. It seems to. I'm going to create a new sketch on the XY plane. And now we need to create the top profile for that weight chamber. So I'm just rotating a little bit so I can see those lines. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and pull in these top 2 points. Then I'm going to go back to the model view and hide those two sketches so they're not confusing, and bring back or bring visible the top profile of the crankbait and hit this top key so I'm looking at it straight on. Okay, let's hide the side profile too. Here I'm going to draw another simple rectangle, and I'm going to make it symmetric using the S key to that vertical axis. And then I'm going to use the C key to create a point on line constraint here. I'm going to grab that point and that line and the bottom point and the bottom line. I'm going to go ahead and switch to construction mode here and bring in just one side of this side profile. I only need one because of the symmetric constraint. I will, still in construction mode here, drop a line, a horizontal line between that point and this line. Make sure you get that little point on line symbol. And it did go horizontal, which is what I want. And I will dimension this line here to 1.5. And that gives me plenty of wall space beyond this hole. So I'm fully constrained. Let's close that and rename it to Weight Chamber Top. Now we're going to create another curved array, and I could switch back to the other workbench, but I'm going to take the easy way out here. I'm going to collapse the sketches group and go down into my bait, lure, and bill and select that curved array and hit Control C. Now I don't want copies of these other sketches, so I'm going to deselect them and say OK. Now the curved array is on my clipboard and I can hit Control V. I'm going to rename this to Weight Chamber Curved Array. And if we show it, well, it's the bait because we haven't changed anything else yet. So I'm going to, let's go ahead and keep it visible. I'm going to go down here to the Data tab, and I'm going to find under Curved Array this item called Hull Curves. I'm going to select it, and you'll find the 3 dots here. And I'm just going to hit the Clear button. Now, if I was to say, okay, that would remove the hull curves, but while I'm here, I'm going to scroll down to my last things I did and just select the weight chamber side and top profile and say, okay. Now, it doesn't look like anything happened, and that's pretty common with the curved array, but if I right click on it and say recompute object, you will see it appear. Let's go ahead and hide these sketches. I'm going to select them in the model view here and hit the space bar. And then let's go ahead and show our bait. And you can see that we have a little problem. Our curved array is actually sticking out of the bait a little bit. And that has to do with the fact that this top profile, or the bait, was lofted so far that it's skinny down here. And I wanted to actually show this because there's a really easy fix here. Since everything's parametric, all we have to do is go back to our top profile and make this thing a little skinnier. So let's go here. Let's actually hide the bait so we can see what we're doing. And we're going to double click on this constraint and set it to 3 millimeters. Now when I close this sketch, that'll recompute that weight chamber, and it shouldn't be sticking out of the bait anymore. So let's go ahead and take that weight chamber and add it to this. Sorry, I selected way too much here. Let's add it to our all body cuts fusion. So select that fusion, go here to the shapes and the 3 dots, and just select the weight chamber curved array. And that'll cut it out of the bait. Now to see that, you can actually select the bait in the tree view here and go down to the View tab. And under Object Style, you can find Transparency and set that to something like 50 or 75. And when you do that, you can see that weight chamber sitting right there on the inside of the bait. You can also see our pilot holes and our eyes. Congrats, we're done. Go print this wake bait, take it out there, and catch you a really cool fish like this one here. Thanks for watching.